Caseus. The Inner Storm. Chapter 9. Over the next several days, training would increase in difficulty, not only for Caseus, but the entire team. However, the truth was becoming glaringly obvious. That being that all the training in the world would mean nothing if they didn't have the information they needed. As talented as each member of the team was, they would be overwhelmed by Imperial forces if they tried to challenge the might of the Empire to get to Vader. They needed some way to draw him out. Or, they needed to find him at a time where he wouldn't be guarded by thousands of troopers. Above all else, Caseus still worried about how they would go about confronting Vader when they found him. Their options were limited. Someone as powerful as Skywalker would sense them if they tried to stealthily assassinate him when his guard was down. Charging in full force would end in disaster if he had troops on hand. They would have to separate him from his forces somehow, if they had any chance at defeating him. The question was how they would do it. As Caseus sat with the others eating their lunch under the sweltering suns, Rondo's ship arrived. He had been gone for several days collecting intelligence and selling off old treasures from the cruiser to help pay off Harbo and his team. As he stepped out of the ship, he ran forward to the group.
"We may have some good news."
Caseus lit up. "What is it?" Dravok emerged from the cruiser.
"What's going on?"
"Rondo says they may have news."
"It's not much to go off of just yet, but thanks to my sources in the Western Reaches, I've found that the Empire has nearly completed construction of a factory on the planet Castellon."
"What kind of factory?"
"A factory to construct their new fighters."
Rondo pulled out a small holoprojector as a fuzzy image of a one-man fighter flickered to life.
"They're called TIE fighters, and the Empire, from what I've been told, has plans to use them as their primary line of starfighters within the Imperial Navy."
"Okay, that's something, I guess."
"It's nothing. A force like the Empire probably has dozens of these factories spread across the galaxy. We need more useful information, Rodian." "Ah, but therein lies our solution. My source has informed me that a certain Darth Vader will be paying a visit to this particular station within 2 days' time."
"Vader will be at this factory?"
"I trust my source. He's never let me down. If he's correct, Vader will be overseeing the final stage of its construction on orders of the Emperor himself. Of course, this leaves us with more work to do. We'll have to send out someone to scout out this facility and return with more info on its layout."
Caseus thought. If they sent out someone from Harbo's crew, they could return with a layout of the station, or at the very least an idea of what they would be up against in terms of Imperial resistance when the time came to enact their plan. The more they could find out about this place, the better. After that, they'd just need to come up with a strategy on how to get to Vader himself. "Let me talk to Harbo. I'll see if we can work something out. Contact your informant and see if he can get us any coordinates to this factory." Rondo nodded and returned to his ship. Finally, a bit of luck.
"Don't get too overconfident, Caseus. We have a lot of work to do if we're going to pull this off."
"I know. Still, this is more useful information than we've had in a while. I'm going to talk to Harbo."
"Keep me informed then."
Caseus walked over to Harbo, who was playing a game of smuggler's dice with Juro. "Harbo, can I talk to you?"
"Just a minute. I'm about to show this clone here how a real champion plays dice."
"Now, Harbo." Harbo sighed and set the dice down before walking over to Caseus.
"All right. What's up?"
"We finally have some useful intel. Vader is going to be visiting an Imperial starship construction factory on Castellon in a few days."
"Okay. And?"
"And we need someone to head out there when we have the coordinates to scout the place out and come back with more information. Rondo and his men are going to be busy getting us more info on Vader and his whereabouts. So we need someone from your team to go check it out."
"That wasn't part of the arrangement."
"I know, but we're so close to putting the plan into action. Please. We need this info or we might lose the only chance we have." Harbo scratched his neck and slicked back his hair.
"I guess when you put it that way. All right, let me talk to Rex. He's our guy for this kind of stuff."
"Thanks. Harbo, trust me, this will all be over before you know it."
"It better be. I'm getting sick of this place.
Harbo walked over to Rax, who was tinkering with his blaster.
Rex, I've got a job for you. Another job? Is this one less crazy? When the Rhodian gets back with the coordinates, I'm gonna need you to take the Arabella and scout out a spot in the mid-rim.
Rax sighed.
What spot is this exactly?
Some ship factory that the Empire is using. Apparently Vader's gonna be there at some point, and we need you to scout the place out.
So you want me to head into Imperial territory and spy on a top-secret military facility?
Come on, it's not the craziest thing you've had to do. Rax tossed his tools down and stood up.
Have you considered you might be asking too much? That this plan won't go as expected? I like being alive, Harbo. I don't want to stick out my neck any more than I have to.
Rex, buddy, you're letting your nerves get to you. Yeah, this'll be dangerous, but we've dealt with situations like this in the past. And this time we got Jedi backing us up.
It's too risky. I'm still upset you took the job in the first place. If I were in charge, I would have turned them down on Nar Shaddaa. I knew there was something off about them. You did too. But you didn't trust your gut. Now we're stuck here taking part in a suicide mission because of your ego.
Harbo looked at Rax, who sighed in exasperation.
I don't want to die, Harbo. This whole thing is... it's too much.
Rex, I get it. I do. You don't like our odds. But when have the odds ever stopped us before? We've dealt with plenty of bad situations. Spice cartels, underground militias, all sorts of dangerous folk. But we stuck together and made it through. And if we stick to our guns here, all we have to do is provide some backup for these guys so they can deal with Vader themselves. I promise you, once this is over, we won't have to take any more jobs like this. But we're the Arabella's crew. And when we take a job, we see it done. Rax looked down and grumbled.
Fine. But no more surprise missions.
Attaboy, Rax. You're a good man. When the Rhodian gets back, we'll send you on your way. Just play it cool, lay low, and find out what you can. Rax nodded and returned to his work. Meanwhile, Saturi sat in the hangar of the Praxium ship, looking through the scope of her rifle at the sand-covered landscape. Hey. Saturi turned around and saw Caseus walking over. I just wanted to let you know there have been some big developments in the plan. Saturi looked back through her scope as Caseus scratched the back of his head. I also wanted to apologize for the other day. I should have known I'm not the only one who's been through a lot. The story you told me, I guess it was a bit of a wake-up call. I need to keep things in perspective. Saturi looked at Caseus and stood up, slinging her rifle over her shoulder. I accept your apology. Perhaps I was too forward in asking about your personal reasons for revenge. If you really want to know what I lost, I'll tell you. Saturi sat on a crate as Caseus sat beside her. The day that the Jedi Order was destroyed was the day I lost everything. Before the temple was attacked, I was sent by the Council to stop a fellow Jedi from attacking a Republic outpost on Artus Prime. He was my friend. He died there, and I couldn't save him. When I came back to the temple, it was already under attack. So many of the Jedi I grew up alongside were killed. My master. She sacrificed herself so I could live. I watched helplessly as she was gunned down. But the worst was... Caseus sighed and tried to hide the pain in his voice. There was one more Jedi who died that day. Her name was Sarah. I loved her. I loved her more than anything. I was even planning on leaving the Jedi Order to start a new life with her. I found her dead. Killed by Vader. I never even got to say goodbye. I wasn't there for her when she needed me. I tried to kill him. I tried to murder him for what he took from me. I failed. I lost everything that day. Because of him. Saturi looked at Caseus.
What will you do then? When the moment comes, will you kill him?
Caseus nodded sadly. There's no other option. He can't continue to spread his evil throughout the galaxy. If we don't stop him, no one will. Sarah can't have died in vain. Caseus felt Saturi place her cybernetic hand on his.
The galaxy is a terrible place sometimes. People commit evil acts and rarely see justice. But it's good to know there are people like you out there. Good people who desire to right the wrongs of the galaxy. I think that's noble.
It's not noble. It's just what needs to be done.
Whatever you call it, it's inspiring. Not too many would take the risk you are taking.
Caseus looked at her. Like I said, I don't have a choice. I have to do this. Saturi looked at him, taking his cybernetic hand and holding onto it firmly in a gesture of solidarity.
Then we'll do what we can to help you see it done.
Caseus smiled and bowed his head.
Ooh, someone's taking a break, I see.
Caseus and Saturi looked at their hands and let go.
Caseus, you dog.
It's not what it looks like, Harbo. We're just talking.
Hey, Saturi's a grown woman. She can make her own choices. Just be sure to have her back up here for dinner time.
Harbo left chuckling as Caseus rolled his eyes. Later that evening, Caseus rested in his bed when he heard his comlink beeping. Hello? Caseus closed his eyes tightly and took a deep breath. It's not real. It's a dream. Suddenly, Caseus felt a searing pain through his chest as he looked down and saw a blade of blood-red plasma emerging through his heart. In the reflection of the cockpit window, he saw his attacker, not Vader. Himself. Caseus woke up with sweat covering his face. Another sleepless night. Morning came, and Caseus was exhausted and irritable. Harbo was helping Rax load up his gear onto the ship.
You're gonna be fine, Rax. Simple recon.
Simple isn't the word I would use.
Doesn't matter what you call it as long as you can do it.
Rondo walked over and handed a chip with the coordinates to Rax.
They may have patrol ships in the area, so remember to keep your distance as much as possible.
Rax nodded and stepped into the ship.
Rax!
Rax turned as Harbo gave a little salute.
Good luck.
Rax saluted back and closed the ramp of the Arabella. After a minute or two, the ship took off to the sky. Caseus was leaning against the wing of the shuttle, trying to stay awake.
Caseus?
Caseus opened his eyes and saw Juro holding some water for him.
You get any sleep?
Caseus shook his head and sipped the water.
Well, if you need, I can talk to Dravok and...
I'm okay, Juro. Sleep will come later. Right now I have to focus on coming up with a strategy.
No sense in that until we learn out more about this TIE factory. Just breathe.
Caseus was annoyed, but took a deep breath in and out, as Juro sat next to him looking at the desert.
I'm really sick of this place.
Yeah, me too. Hope it blows up after we leave, to be honest. Juro and Caseus chuckled at the remark.
Speaking of which, if we pull this off, when, I should say, where will you go?
Caseus thought. Someplace quiet. Remote. Dantooine. I think I'll hide out there.
Why Dantooine?
That's where Sarah wanted to go, to start a new life. It just feels right. What about you?
If it's all the same with you, I think I'll tag along.
Juro, by the time this is over, I'll be public enemy number 1. It won't be safe.
All the more reason for me to stick around. You'll need some eyes in the back of your head. Jedi or not, you're human. More than that, you're my friend. I'll stick by you through whatever comes.
Caseus smiled. He'd never met anyone as loyal as Juro. The fact that he'd questioned his loyalty before now made him feel guilty. If it hadn't been for Juro, he wouldn't be here. He owed him his life. At the very least, he could allow him to stick around, if that was his decision. Okay, Juro. When this is over, we'll set up on Dantooine and lay low for a while. The day slowly passed as Caseus sat by the fire, massaging his sore shoulder after a rough training session.
Sean, may I sit?
Rondo joined Caseus and sat down. What's up?
Well, I was hoping to give you this after we'd completed our business together, but I figure better now than never. Apparently, a few artifacts from your Jedi Temple were being auctioned off. We made out like bandits with what we managed to score. However, there was one item we found that I'm sure you'll be interested in.
What is it? Rondo pulled out something wrapped in thick cloth and unraveled it. Inside was Master Takai's book that she had given him years ago. His name still embroidered on the damaged leather cover. Cassius' eyes widened as he took it in his hand.
I take it this belongs to you?
Cassius was at a loss for words as he slowly flipped through the pages. Whoever owned this book in the past year clearly didn't take care of it. How much do you want for it? Rondo chuckled.
So it is yours. Well, far be it from me to separate you from it. Consider it a gesture of my goodwill. Take it, on the condition that you never wrap us up in something like this again.
Cassius smiled with a tear in his eye. Deal. Thank you, Rondo. Meanwhile, the Arabella made its way to Castellon, slowly approaching the surface of the planet. It was completely covered in oceans as far as the eye could see. Checking the coordinates Rondo had given him, he carefully piloted the ship through the dense fog, keeping the cloaking device up. The fog began to clear, and he saw it. Suspended a mile above the water was a large floating construction station. Ships flew around before landing, no doubt testing the ships they were crafting. Creeping closer, Rax carefully began to take pictures of the facility. He needed to get closer. As he did, taking a few more pictures, the cloaking device began to sputter and fail, causing Rax to panic. He tried to reactivate it, but soon felt the Arabella freeze in place. A tractor beam. Rax tried everything he could to free the ship, but slowly, it was lulled towards the hangar, where a squad of stormtroopers were waiting. Rax grabbed his comlink to contact Harbo, but hesitated. There was no getting out of this situation. The ramp to the Arabella opened as the stormtroopers entered, aiming their weapons at Rax, who raised his arms.
Don't move! Hands on your head!
Rax nodded, shaking in fear as the stormtroopers took his weapons and placed him in restraints, leading him off the ship and into the hangar where an Imperial officer stood. You are trespassing on restricted property. What is your business here?
I just got lost.
A feeble excuse. Take him to the brig. We will question him there. The troopers led Rax to the prison and shoved him inside with 2 guards standing on either side of the door. There he sat for several minutes trying to desperately bargain with the guards.
You have to believe me. This is a misunderstanding. Quiet. We'll figure out what's going on here soon. Look, I can pay you.
The door opened as the officer walked inside holding Harbo's camera. Just got lost, did you? Would you care to explain these photographs?
I was just curious as to what this place was.
You're a terrible liar, my friend. No doubt you were trying to gather intelligence for some sort of sabotage operation.
No, I had nothing to do with...
The door opened again, as a shadow blocked the incoming light. A tall, dark figure stepped inside, as the officer immediately stood at attention and moved out of the way. It was him.
A spy.
No, I'm no spy. I was just...
It would be in your best interest to tell the truth. Your life depends on the next words to come out of your mouth.
No.
Rax fell on his knees, face to the floor.
Please, don't kill me. I don't want to die.
Then speak. Tell us what you know.
Rax sat up and thought carefully. This was Harbo's fault. He knew coming here was a bad idea, working with Imperial fugitives, Jedi no less. Now he would die because of them. Unless...
So be it. Execute him.
Vader turned to leave as the troopers aimed their weapons.
Wait! I know where you can find Jedi.
Vader stood still and raised his hand, halting the troopers.
Speak your next words carefully.
Rax stood.
2 Jedi. They hired me and my crew for some crazy plan to kill you.
Where are they?
Rax could hear a slight tinge of desperation in Vader's voice.
I'll tell you everything. I promise. But I want you to know, none of this was my idea. I want out of this plan. I want to help you. I just want 2 things.
Vader lifted his fist and slowly, Rax could feel his throat tightening as he choked and was lifted from the floor.
You would make demands to me.
Not demands. A bargain. Please.
Vader slowly dropped Rax to a crumbling heap as he coughed.
All I want is what any man wants. I want money. Money and a clean slate. If you kill me, you won't find them. But I can tell you everything I know. I'll help you.
Vader stood above Rax.
If your information proves valuable, and you pledge your loyalty, you will be compensated appropriately. Now speak.
These Jedi, they have some beef with you. They're planning to ambush you here at this factory. That's why I was sent. To gain information about this place, so they could make their move.
How many are accompanying these traitors?
Less than 20. They're all very well trained. It could be trouble.
Vader stood and looked at the officer. Shall I call for the probe droid, my lord?
That won't be necessary. I have other plans.
Vader used the Force and removed Rax's restraints.
Return to your crew. Speak nothing of this meeting. And let their plan play out.
Lord Vader, I must advise against this.
If these Jedi believe their plan has been compromised in any way, they will flee before we can track them down. Let them believe they still hold the element of surprise. We will lure the Jedi to us, and when they arrive, we will put an end to their ill-conceived scheme.
The officer nodded.
Have our guest here fitted with a remote detonator. If he attempts to go back on his word, it will be the last mistake he ever makes.
Rax looked worried as the officer left the room.
What do I tell them?
Provide them with the intelligence that you have gathered. When they arrive, we will see to it that you are unharmed, provided you obey my orders.
The officer returned with a sharp device and stuck it behind Rax's ear, implanting a small explosive. Any attempt to remove this yourself will result in a swift death. Rax nodded and rubbed his head as Vader walked out of the doorway.
You should know. These Jedi are powerful. And they want you dead.
If all you know of power is what you have seen from the Jedi, you know nothing.
Vader left as Rax was escorted back to the Arabella with his gear and sent on his way. Vader, meanwhile, stared out of the window of the observatory, a plan formulating in his dark mind.